Lovely to see you in person. We often talk down the line,
but it's
good
to be here.
Lovely to see you in the studio. Thanks so much for coming in. Michael, President Trump and J.D. Vance are making it pretty clear, aren't they, that they are saying the US will walk away if the two sides don't come to a deal. President Trump saying that the question of Crimea and what Zelensky said about that is very harmful to peace talks with Russia, saying it would prolong the killing field. The US have the upper hand here, don't they?
They do have the upper hand in the sense that they do provide, they're the main provider of security to Ukraine, intelligence, that sort of thing. But I am starting to think that perhaps the Ukrainians should have another look at this and say maybe there are better interlocutors to try and bring peace between Ukraine and Russia. Perhaps they can look across the Black Sea and get Turkey more involved. They have fairly good relationships with Mr. Putin. They're, of course, concerned about Black Sea security. The Americans are playing a very, very dangerous diplomatic game here. We do wonder what happened to the master of the art of the deal, who said he would solve this war within, one day of being inaugurated. He has vanished. And if I could also add, because you just had that piece about J.D. Vance in India, I think he also, by J.D. Vance saying this about Ukraine on Indian soil, puts them in a difficult position because they've taken a more or less neutral stance. And we're talking about territorial integrity here, something the Indians have a lot of concerns about.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, the difficulty is, though, when you say, should Ukraine look to other players, if the US did pull out and say we're not getting involved, and more worryingly for Ukraine, withdraw more support from Zelensky, how can Ukraine fight Moscow on its own, even with European support? It can't, can it?
It can't. It's put Mr. Zelensky in a very difficult corner. Europe is in no shape, along with the United Kingdom, of course, to flip the switch and say, OK, we're going to assume the security role that the United States has played. It will take years for Europe to get their defense systems up to gear to help defend Ukraine. I do understand from statements from European leaders just today is that there's no way that Europe will go and follow the United States lead and recognize Crimea as Russian territory. And neither can Mr. Zelensky if he were to accept.
Do you think that is likely that the US will recognize Crimea?
I think they will. More and more, it's week by week by week, this White House is sounding more Kremlin-esque. It boggles the mind, the things we're hearing out of their minds. And, even these statements today by Mr. Trump and J.D. Vance, they're basically parroting Kremlin lines, saying the war has to stop, but only on Russia's terms, meaning that they want to retain about 20% of Ukrainian territory, Crimea and other bits and pieces too.
Doesn't Zelensky, though, have to give up some territory if he wants a deal at the end of the day?
Well, what I'm about to say is a little bit controversial. I mean, I am based in Ukraine, and I haven't really met any Ukrainian who says we're going to get Crimea back. I think it's more or less recognized that it's gone. However, the precedent that is being set, if the United States, the supposed to be defender of the free power in the world, recognizes illegally seized territory, imagine the signal that sends to other thugs, other autocrats in the world. It gives a good signal for Mr. Xi Jinping as well to maybe have another look at the timing of taking Taiwan back.
Yeah, but we also know what Trump has said about, for example, Greenland. So,
right.
And there are many, many boundary disputes all over the world that don't get the attention that Ukraine has had.
Yeah.
The question really is what's going to come out in the next few days, isn't it? How soon would the US recognise Crimea? We've got this Witkoff meeting due on Friday with Putin. What are you expecting from that?
Not much has come out of those meetings, or they haven't told us much of the details, but it does sound like they're meeting with the Russians very, very frequently and getting their kind of narrative. There could be a chance for some progress this weekend because both Mr. Trump and Mr. Zelensky are meant to be in the Vatican for the Pope's funeral, so perhaps they'll have a chat then and move things on. But it's not looking in Ukraine's favor at the moment. The United States, again, seems to, for some reason, this Trump team really take on the Kremlin narrative and push that down the Ukrainians' throats. It could be very politically costly for Mr. Zelensky if they don't come up with a quick strategy soon.
And just on the Crimea question, if you say that many people in Ukraine accept that Crimea, they're not going to get it back, why is Zelensky still sounding, pretty tough, pretty emotional, some might say, on
Right.
Crimea.
Yeah, and he also made it clear that it's part of the Ukrainian constitution, that Crimea is part of Ukraine. I think a lot of Ukrainians right now fear the most is that the Russians might get the remainder of the 4 oblasts where there's partial Russian occupation. So we're talking about Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. And that is a red line for Mr. Zelensky. If he were to sign a deal like that, giving them control of those 4 oblasts, that would instantly put millions of Ukrainians under Russian occupation. Every Ukrainian I've spoken to has said Russian occupation is like, to us, living like hell on earth. It cannot happen.
Okay, Michael BOCIURKIW, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Thank you.